So to analyze this show, Ali Young uses something called objectification theory. In objectification theory, women are treated as bodies. Uh, in this particular case, they're analogous to lands or frontiers. They exist for the pleasure of others. Women are constructed, protected, claimed, inhabited, or visited. So you think of this as very sort of dehumanizing in its own way. Um, but ultimately, it's sort of extreme objectification. Um, and in this case, applying that sort of objectification to sort of uncharted lands, if you could think about that. And we'll get into more details about that argument here in a little bit. So in analyzing popular culture, there's a number of pieces you can look at and a number of pieces that Ali Young looks at. So there's the primary text. In this case, it's the show itself. That's the primary text, the focus of the analysis. Then there's publicity around the text. So in this case, an In Touch Weekly article about the show or about people on the show. So that's another area of focus. And then the ways in which audiences respond to these shows, whether it's message boards or comments on videos or comments on YouTube, looking at how audiences receive these texts and what they have to say about them is another sort of key way to analyze popular culture. So there are a number of representations that are important in this argument. One is thinking of women as virgin territory. You can think about that in the literal or figurative sense. Motherland, which is a term that's used in the article. No man's land, a term I'm sure you've heard of before, and we'll talk about how that's applied to the show in the article. And then tourist attraction, which when you think about that, of these, it's probably the most dehumanizing. And we'll talk about how Ali Young is applying that notion here. So if we want to think about what Ali Young is saying about women as virgin territory, um, virgin territories in terms of people and of places have never been touched, explored, developed. They take time to access. So in terms of these brides that are featured on the show, they are framed in many ways as virgin territory. Um, Virgin territory can be dangerous, can be hard to get to. The fact that it's unexplored means the mechanisms for navigating it aren't there. So to apply that to a person is interesting and troubling all at the same time. These dresses, and we'll see this later in the presentation, are really intricate, ornate. They're very difficult to get in and out of. So if you think of them as a barrier to prevent people from access to the virgin territory, the dress stands for that. To even get a glimpse of virgin territory in the sort of land sense is thrilling. These are all arguments that Ali Young is making. These dresses are super heavy. I've never worn a dress, so I don't have any frame of reference to know how heavy a dress should be, but they're incredibly heavy. And in fact, in both the American version of the show and the UK version of the show, the women are shown to have pretty significant scars on their bodies from wearing these dresses. They have apparatuses that prevent the scars from being as bad as they could be, but they're pretty awful. Again, if we think of Ali Young's argument of woman as virgin territory, then these dresses are leaving a mark on virgin territory. They're leaving a claim on the person. Ultimately, the notions that are being explored in this part of the argument are, passive women and conquering men. Brides are immobilized land waiting for men to claim them. There's a kind of fantasy power that stems from patriarchal power when you think of woman as virgin territory. As I said before, it's very objectifying. And all of this is constructed by the producers of these shows, the critics, the audience, and the people on the show themselves. All sort of contribute to this notion of woman as virgin territory. Whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously, it is a narrative that is perpetuated on the show. If we want to think of woman as motherland, as Ali Young does, you can think of the wife assuming responsibility for defending land from others. So here you see one of the matriarchs of the show who tended to be quite animated, and we'll see her in some clips here in a second. She feeds her people, the woman as motherland, feeds her people through tradition, through self-sacrifice, through resourcefulness, and she'll fight others to defend her family honor. And there's a great deal of female fighting on these shows to defend one another's honor. You'll see quite a bit of that. So the notion of woman as motherland is something that is equally prominent on this particular show. Ultimately, what Ali Young says, women make the choice on this show to occupy the space of motherland. And we'll see some examples of that kind of behavior in the clips to come.